So we did not have a space in the community that was for families, at least not one that I knew of. Like myself and many of my other mommy friends in the neighborhood, we took our kids uptown for activities or to Virginia, and there just wasn't a space in our neighborhood that we could easily get to for our kids to hang out in. So I actually had my sights set on this building for quite some time, and I had to navigate the whole process of going through DCRA to get it open, which took about 2 years. But I knew that I wanted to have an art space and a coffee shop, two things that I love a lot. And so when this space became available, I spoke with the owner at the time and pitched my idea, and he happened to love it. And so the premise of the business is simply to support emerging local artists and emerging food and beverage vendors. I live in the neighborhood. I live right across the street. Our kids are here. And so one of the things that we saw was just a lack of activities for families. There was an increasing population of children and families moving into the neighborhood. And so we wanted to open a space where families could come, coffee enthusiasts, art lovers, and that was essentially the connection that we live and work here. We love our neighborhood, we love our neighbors, and so what better place to have a business in than something that's right across the street. It's meant to be a gathering space for the community. I had someone tell me that it's like the unofficial living room of Bloomingdale, and that made my heart just sing because I want it to be a place where everyone feels welcomed, to come and use the space for community events, have coffee, support local artists, and so yeah, it's fellowship, it's community, it's belonging. We did not have a space in the community that was for families, at least not one that I knew of. Like myself and many of my other mommy friends in the neighborhood, we took our kids uptown for activities or to Virginia, and there just wasn't a space in our neighborhood that we could easily get to for our kids to hang out in. And so Creative Grounds offers birthday parties, on our lower level. There are crayons and other art activities that are just out throughout the day. And so that was a significant piece of it, that we wanted something because nothing seemed to exist. But then also my husband and I, although I'm a first generation Eddie Train American, my husband was born and raised in Washington, D.C., and a lot is changing. And so this was kind of our attempt at keeping the familiar. When I came up with the idea of Creative Grounds, it was not meant to just be across the street from our neighborhood, from our home, or a Ward 5 business, which are both like great. I get to walk across the street, I get to see people that I see all the time just on walks with our dogs. So, but I envisioned it being a space where we would grow kind of exponentially, and we would have Creative Grounds in every ward in the district that would represent the artistic makeup that the business is located in. And so for me, it's so much more than just one brick and mortar space. I want to give artists in every community the opportunity to exhibit their work, to become teaching artists, to host workshops, and so that is kind of the bigger picture. There's also the piece of just supporting Black artists. I spent some time as a former board member at the Smithsonian African Art Museum in their advisory board. And one of the things that we noticed is that there were not enough Black artists represented in artistic spaces in the district. And so it's really important to me that I give Black artists the space to show their work. For instance, over probably the next year, we're going to engage in an exploration of discourse, connection, and healing that looks at Black women who use healing in the arts. And I think that just given conversations that I've had with artists here, that a lot of that is going to essentially be about displacement, and a lot of and displacement just like geographically speaking, but also kind of on a larger scale in terms of looking at the spectrum of healing in the arts. And so it's a mixture of both. You know, it's about seeing where voids exist and trying to fill those gaps, but then also supporting local Black artists.
So is this your first business?
Yes, so this is my first for-profit business. I come from the nonprofit world. I did immigration and refugee work, something that still remains very near and dear to my heart. But this is my first for-profit venture. My husband, who's co-owner, he's not. He owns and operates his own real estate business and has for quite some time. So this is a new venture for me, but I think that I'm able to pull the skills that I've developed from the nonprofit world into the for-profit sector.
Being as though your husband already owns and operates a business, was it easier for you to, attack this mission and starting and opening your first business?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So in short, I'm gonna say no. Like, my immediate response is no, but I'll tell you why. Neither of us have had to kind of build a space. Like, this space was not, what you see now did not exist. And so having to navigate the process, as I mentioned earlier, through DCRA and permitting and just build out, everything that's involved in build out and permitting, neither of us had any experience with it. And so that was extremely challenging. Of course, there were certain knowledge that he brought to the process that I did not have, which helped to kind of make things a bit smoother. But the permitting process is a beast. Yeah.
So talk to us about, as a business owner, how long have you been operating?
So we opened in November 2019, and then a few months later we closed for, as you guys know, the quarantine and COVID. And so in an effort to keep our community safe, we closed our doors. But thankfully, because during the build out, we included a service window, we were able to still maintain operation, although at a limited capacity on the coffee bar side. But unfortunately, we weren't able to use the art piece of it. It is a art forward space with a coffee component. And so not being able to use the art space was difficult, but we tried to still support artists as best that we could through our social media channels and other kind of virtual avenues.
What are some things that you think you have learned about the process of entrepreneurship?
There are many highs and lows. I feel like that's redundant. I mean, I think that most people that have started businesses know that there are going to be tremendous highs and lows. I would also add to that I think having a network is really important, being connected to people who are either walking a similar path or have already done it. I think that that's tremendously helpful. I don't believe that, let me say the positive piece of it is I think that there's enough space for everyone. I believe in community over competition. And so being connected to people that share your dreams and your goals, whether it's in the area of building out your small business or just in the neighborhood, in the community that you live in. I think that I've learned a lot about just the importance of networking beyond just kind of business connections, but realizing that you are part of your community. The community has been tremendously supportive. This past year alone has shown us so much. Community members, even if they weren't going out, just like if they were taking precautions and not going out, they would still make an effort to come to Creative Grounds in the morning and patron the service window, just to make sure that when we got to the end of this, that we would still be open, that we would be here. And that was so heartwarming, and I was tremendously thankful to the community for that. So yeah, they've been beyond supportive. I think there are a lot of people who want to have a brick and mortar space, without necessarily thinking about all that is required in having a brick and mortar space. And so aside from wanting to know what it is that they want to do, I would ask them, are we looking at an e-commerce business or are we looking at a brick and mortar space? Do you need to be in a brick and mortar space? I would ask them what are their kind of long-term objectives? What do they want to get from it? And then I would probably connect them I would talk them through the whole process, which I've done. I'm very fortunate that I've gotten Instagram messages from people asking, if I would be willing to talk to them about this process. And I've always been very candid about it. And so I would like to spend some time kind of talking them through it first before they make the jump. I've had the tremendous benefit of partnering with, for instance, the Black Women Collab Group, and I've met aspiring business owners who, some of whom decided, I don't need a brick and mortar space, but then others have just taken the leap and they rent a brick and mortar space. And so that's probably what I would do first. I would just kind of go straight into the weeds so that kind of like what your own capacity is. And then go from there. You just have to have a clear sense of what you want out of it before you make a significant financial obligation, commitment, time commitment. That's just normal. You're going to have to put in some time, but the financial commitment between a brick and mortar space and e-commerce is very different.
Does it get overwhelming for you at times?
Does it get overwhelming? I guess it can get overwhelming, but I also understand that there's a time for what I forget the saying, but there are seasons, right? Like so, I understand that this is kind of how it is to begin with, and so that helps to put it into perspective. But I have a really great team that works with me, and of course my husband is there, and I have two wonderful children. That actually one of them was here with me last night doing an art installation. Another one was helping put up birthday party decorations. So yes, it can get overwhelming. Just like I said before, there are a lot of highs and lows, but it's worth it. I think it's worth it.
So as we close out, what type of feeling does owning a business give you?
What type of feeling? Excitement. It is very exciting all the time. It is tremendously exciting. Partly because you have a vision for your business, but no 2 days are ever the same. And so I'm constantly having to be nimble and think about what I need to do, how I need to do it, who needs to be involved. And it really does change day to day. I imagine that certain things over time will become more consistent and I, will have a clear expectation. But so much changes. And I think in part that has to do with just like COVID, like where we are. And we're all trying to navigate those spaces. But I would probably say exciting. It is tremendously exciting and new every day.